So you're probably wondering why this doesn't look like my average short film, and for that you'd be absolutely correct. In full honesty, I had no clue what I was going to be doing for this project, but I figured I'd take this opportunity to teach my peers how to improve their filmmaking and improve their projects as well. So for those of you who don't know, Mr. Waldy, through his relentless begging of the board and whatever the hell he did, was able to give us these. Real cameras. Now, I know these aren't the exact cameras that we were given. I know we were given the Panasonic Lumix G7 mirrorless cameras, but I just needed something to hold in my hand, so I just grabbed something random. So just pretend there's a little Lumix logo sitting right there. Also, for all the examples that I'm going to be showing you today, I used my Sony a6300, my little baby that I'm shooting with right now, but all the things that I'm going to teach you today is going to be universal to almost all cameras as well as phones. Also, I'd like to preface this video by saying that I am no near a professional. I've only been doing this for about 2 years now, so if I say a definition correctly, please don't tear me apart in the comments. But without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to start out with is focal length. Now, focal length is the distance between the center of a lens or curved mirror and its focus. So in layman's terms, it's basically the crop or zoom on a lens, but it also affects the depth of field as well. This paired with exposure, which basically... Okay, how can I explain this to you guys in a simple way? You see that little tiny hole in the middle of the lens? Exposure controls either how wide or how small you want that little hole to be. Now, many beginner photographers and videographers believe this just controls either how bright or how dark you want the picture to be, and they are mostly correct, but it also affects depth of field as well. Now, I know for the cameras that we have in class, we have prime lenses, which are lenses with fixed focal lengths. Now, many people believe that this is a disadvantage, and they are correct, but prime lenses have lower f-stops, the measurement of exposure, giving you a more shallow depth of field. For the sake of convenience, I'm going to be using my G Master 18-105, which was the lens I was shooting on in the intro. So to start, this was a shot filmed at an 18mm focal length. Now, this is considered a more wider focal length. This is mostly used for, you guessed it, wide-angle shots, trying to get as much in the shot as possible, or filming a subject in a medium or close-up shot, having a shallow depth of field and having the background less blurred out. Now, this is a shot at a 50mm focal length. Now, a 50 to 75mm focal length is kind of the sweet spot when it comes to shots like these, and it's most flattering on the human face as well. Finally, this is a more extreme example. For the shot, I actually switched lenses and I'm now using a 75 to 300 and I'm using a 200mm focal length on it. Now, these types of lenses are not really used for these types of shots, but nowadays more directors are starting to use these types of lenses in dialogue scenes in order to put more emphasis on the actors' performances. Also, before I move on, I almost forgot to explain shutter speed. Now, shutter speed is pretty self-explanatory. It's how long you want to keep the camera shutter open, which lets light into the camera. This feature is kinda similar to exposure, in which it controls either how bright or how dark you want the photo to be, but it's more used in photography than it is film, because depending on what frame rate you're shooting at, you can only adjust it a certain amount. And I know there's going to be some comment gremlins saying, oh, but what about crop factors and the fact that you have to times your focal length by 1.4? Listen, I'm sure this is really overwhelming for you guys already, and the last thing I want to do is confuse you guys even more. If you have any questions about crop sensors and full frames and what's the difference between them and all the benefits and stuff, I'll put videos in the link in the description if you guys are interested. Also, if you feel you need to go back to recall some more information from this video or you want to learn more about a certain subject, the full video will be up on my YouTube channel, which if you haven't subscribed, you guys definitely should. But let's move on. Autofocus and manual focus. Now, focus is something very important to visual storytelling and filmmaking in general, as seen in this shot from my short film Ripple Effect, which if you haven't seen, what are you doing, go check it out. But contrary to popular belief, as beginner filmmakers, autofocus is the way to go, especially with the Lumix G7, in which it has a touchscreen display, which all you have to do is touch your subject on the screen. Autofocus will give you the most sharp image as possible. Yes, most professional filmmakers use manual focus, but we have to remember that we're doing everything in these projects by ourselves, and we need to make the process as easy as possible for us. But manual focus still has certain situations in which it's needed. For dialogue and conversations, manual focus should be used to focus on one subject, so that way there's no chance of autofocus finding. while autofocus should basically, well, be used for anything else. Tracking shots, wide shots, and basically anything having to do with a lot of movement of the subject should use autofocus. But that's basically all you need to know. Just know what situations each one are needed for. But finally, let's move on to the final and last subject of this video. ISO and white balance. Now, ISO is basically the sensitivity the camera has to light. It's an amazing setting to use for low light situations, but there is a trade-off. ISO affects the quality of the image and adds grain to the shot. In this low light image, you can see, well, nothing. This was shot at about 400 ISO. While on the other hand, you can see a lot in the next image, but there's a lot of grain. This was shot at a substantially higher ISO. My advice, make sure your ISO is as low as possible, light your shot to the best of your ability, and adjust shutter speed and exposure before you even touch ISO. White balance, on the other hand, is the color temperature of the shot, usually identified as WB on the camera. If you're looking for more of a cooler looking blue shot, you can do that. Or if you're looking for more of a warmer orangey type shot, you can do that as well. For me personally, I prefer to use more of a neutral white balance because I like changing how my picture looks and color grading it in post. But if you don't feel like doing that, white balance is definitely the thing you can adjust. But that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any more questions, feel free to put a comment down below or just ask me after class. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Now, if only I can get the BGTV kids to stop borrowing our cameras.